I didn't plan on falling asleep with my tool out. Seriously. It had been a hell of a day. A broken plasma sink that spat boiling steam at my face, a leaky recycler line that smelled like fermented alien algae, and, as the cherry on top, an elderly Valorian client who tried to pay me in fertility herbs instead of credits. By the time I made it to my last job, fixing a flickering light panel in a ritzy apartment, I was running on stubbornness and caffeine fumes. Somewhere between tightening the last conduit and thinking, just 5 minutes, I passed out on the polished composite floor. Tool belt half undone, jumpsuit unzipped to my waist, shirt sweaty and clinging to me like a desperate ex. And yes, my biggest wrench, the heavy-duty plasma-calibrated one I call Betsy, was still sitting across my lap. That's the scene she walked in on. At first, I thought I was dreaming. All I saw was smooth lime green skin, curves that could bankrupt a smuggler, and silver-flecked eyes staring down at me. Then she spoke, and her voice was the final confirmation I was very, very awake. "Oh. My apologies," she purred, her accent delicate and rolling. "I didn't mean to interrupt your maintenance." I jolted upright so fast I nearly threw out my back. The wrench clanged to the floor, echoing around the silent apartment. It's not what it looks like," I blurted out, voice cracking like a kid caught with a dirty magazine. Her expression barely twitched, except for a tiny amused tilt of her lips. "You were polishing your tool?" she asked, eyes glinting with so much smug Valorian humor I wanted the floor to swallow me whole. "It's a real wrench," I insisted, scooping it off the floor and holding it up like a holy relic. "Heavy duty, custom grip. Gets hot when you use it too long. Needs cooling down." I knew I sounded like an idiot, but the words kept coming. "It's the only one that can handle high-voltage panels." Her brows, Valorians have double-ridged brows, somehow making them twice as expressive, lifted slowly. "And do you often handle it in your sleep?" Heat rushed up my neck. "Look," I muttered, "it's been a long shift. I didn't mean to fall asleep. With it out." She shifted her weight, and I noticed she wore a Maid uniform. Not the cutesy kind from Earth Holovids, this was sleek, dark fabric hugging her hips, with subtle embroidered symbols I couldn't read. Her head tendrils twitched gently as she looked me over, amusement still dancing on her face. "Relax, human handyman," she said. "I'm not scandalized. I've seen worse." "Yeah?" I tried to sound casual, but my voice still betrayed me. "Like what?" She tilted her head, her tendrils coiling in a way that made my brain short out. "A Slivian couple who forgot to deactivate the auto-cleaner before coupling," she said, voice calm as if discussing weather. The suction got enthusiastic. "Holy shit." My jaw dropped, and a surprised laugh bubbled out of me. "Okay, yeah, that's worse." She chuckled softly, the sound surprisingly warm. Then her eyes traveled down my chest, lingering on the sweat-darkened fabric. "But your situation is entertaining in its own way." "Entertaining?" I echoed. "Lady, I almost died of embarrassment." "Yet you're still here," she teased. "Humans really do recover quickly." "I'm full of surprises," I shot back before my brain could stop me. Her lips curved. "I've heard that rumor." The silence after was loaded, but not uncomfortable. My heart was still thudding like I'd run a mile, and not just from being caught napping. "Close up," she smelled faintly sweet and sharp, like alien night flowers mixed with warm ozone. She finally nodded toward the light panel I'd been fixing. "Did you finish?" "Almost," I said, trying to focus on literally anything except the way her eyes traced my shoulders. "Just had to replace a heat sink. The panel kept shorting every few hours." She moved closer, and I got a better look at the fine scales dusting her collarbone, catching the light like emerald dust. "You know your craft," she said. "Most humans wouldn't notice the faulty sink." "I'm not most humans," I heard myself say. Stupidly confident, probably because adrenaline had kicked in. "No," she agreed, softly. "You're not." There was a pause, her gaze meeting mine, steady, amused, but with a flicker of something warmer beneath it. Something that made the air feel thicker. I cleared my throat, desperate to keep this from going somewhere my professionalism couldn't handle. "So, what about you? You the client?" She laughed gently, shaking her head. No. I'm just a maid. Hired by your client to tidy up after repairs. I'm from Valoria, if you couldn't guess. Oh, I guessed. I wiped a hand on my jumpsuit, cursing silently when it just spread the grease around. I'm Freddy, by the way. Fix-It Freddy's, at your service. A charming name, she said, amusement flickering again. I'm Kayla. Kayla, I repeated, liking the sound. Pretty name. Thank you, Freddy, she replied, voice softer this time. And don't worry, I won't tell anyone how I found you. With your tool out. Thanks, I muttered, half dying inside, half thrilled by the playful glint in her eye. Appreciate that. She turned to go but hesitated. Oh, she added over her shoulder, next time, maybe lock the door if you plan on napping. Some of the other staff aren't as discreet. Good to know, I said, unable to stop a grin. Though you don't seem scandalized. I'm Valorian, she teased, her voice low. It takes more than a sleeping human handyman with a big wrench to shock me. And then she walked off, hips swaying gently, leaving me there, sweaty, flustered, and grinning like an idiot. And for the first time all day, I wasn't thinking about the broken light panel, the late invoices, or the smell of burnt polymer on my uniform. I was thinking about her. Kayla, the alien maid who walked in while I slept with my tool out, and somehow turned my worst moment into something interesting. Kayla returned about 15 minutes later, carrying a sleek black cleaning drone under her arm. I'd managed to finish the repairs on the panel, but my hands were still trembling like I'd mainlined double espresso. The apartment smelled faintly of ozone and whatever spicy sweet scent clung to her skin. So, she said, voice lazy as she set the drone on the floor, survived your nap? Barely, I admitted. Think I lost about 5 years off my lifespan. Yet your tool survived intact, she teased, her mouth quirking into that small, wicked grin. I barked out a laugh, surprising both of us. Yeah, well, built to last. My brain caught up a second too late, and heat shot up my neck again. I mean, the wrench. The actual wrench. Kayla didn't miss a beat. Good to know. She crouched to activate the drone, the uniform shifting to reveal more of those pale green scales at her hip. I forced myself to look away, focusing on the diagnostic screen in my hand, but my eyes betrayed me, flicking back every few seconds. You humans, she murmured without looking up, are always so obvious when you stare. I'm not staring, I lied, voice embarrassingly high. You are, she corrected gently, still crouched. But it doesn't bother me. Doesn't? I echoed, still clinging to the last tatters of professionalism. She stood, dusting her hands off. No, she said, voice softer now. I find it flattering. Even funny. Funny? I asked, half insulted, half fascinated. Kayla tilted her head. On Valoria, it's polite to show appreciation openly. Humans try so hard to hide it, you trip over yourselves. It's cute. Cute, I repeated, scrubbing a hand through my hair. Great. Always dreamed of being cute. She took a slow step closer. And maybe something more. The drone beeped at our feet, breaking the moment. Kayla glanced down, her eyes losing a bit of that softness. Duty calls, she sighed. The client wanted the dust scanned for allergen spores. I can help, I offered, desperate to keep her talking. You fix things, she pointed out, amusement returning. I clean things. Hey, I can be versatile, I said, then winced again at my own words. I know what you mean, she interrupted, lips parting in a laugh that felt warm enough to burn. And I like versatile. For a second, neither of us moved. The silence was electric. Then she stepped past me, close enough that the tips of her head tendrils brushed my bare arm. My breath caught at the gentle, living texture, softer than they looked, warm like skin. She didn't apologize. Didn't even glance back. Just kept walking, hips swaying gently, while the drone floated behind her, scanning the shelves. Need me to fix that thing, too? I called after her, emboldened by her laugh. She paused, half turning. Maybe, she said. But only if it breaks, accidentally. I said, grinning like an idiot. I'll keep my wrench ready. I'm counting on it, she teased, and then turned away. For the next 20 minutes, I finished sealing the panel, rebalanced the room's ambient humidity, client had weird requirements, exactly 57.5%, and kept sneaking glances at Kayla. She worked methodically, graceful in a way no human ever could, every motion economical, head tendrils flickering as if tasting the air. Finally, she turned, crossing the room until she was barely a foot away. Up close, the faint shimmer of scales ran across her collarbone, catching the apartment's recessed lighting like a living mosaic. You humans sweat more than I expected, she observed lightly. I opened my mouth to defend myself, then realized she was right. My shirt clung to me, streaked with old polymer dust. It's hot work, I said. And, nerves. She tilted her head, scales rippling faintly. Because of me? Mostly, I admitted before I could stop myself. You're distracting. Kayla's smile softened. Good. Valorian courtship is honest. We don't hide interest. Courtship? I croaked, feeling about 12 years old. She murmured, leaning in just enough that I could smell that faint floral ozone scent again. If I were courting you, you'd know. We don't tease endlessly, human. We act. Act, I echoed, heart-pounding. She let the word hang between us, heavy and promising. Then stepped back, breaking the spell just enough that I could breathe. But you're working, she reminded gently. And so am I. Yeah, I muttered, trying to hide my disappointment. Kayla reached out, fingers brushing the inside of my wrist, scales barely rough, almost ticklish. Doesn't mean I'm not thinking about it, though, she said, voice barely above a whisper. Before I could answer, the cleaning drone beeped again, finished. She turned away, reclaiming her professional mask. I should file my report, she said, softer now. And you should finish your invoice, fix it, Freddie. Yeah, I managed, voice rough. Invoice. Kayla hesitated at the door. But maybe, she added, glancing back with that devastating half-smile, next time, you could schedule your nap after the work. And maybe, I shot back, adrenaline rushing, you could schedule your walk-in, on purpose. She laughed, the sound low and musical, and then she was gone, leaving behind ozone, the soft hum of the drone, and a human handyman so flustered he nearly dropped his damn wrench again. A week later, I got the call. Same apartment, same finicky light panel, apparently, the new heatsink had failed. It annoyed me, bad for business, having repeat failures, but a tiny, stupidly hopeful part of me thought, maybe I'll see her again. I tried to tamp it down. Professional, Freddie. You're here to fix things, not to daydream about an alien Maid smile. When I arrived, the place was empty. Quiet, save for the low hum of the apartment's air recyclers. I unpacked my tools, muttering under my breath about defective parts and warranty claims. The panel was flickering again, faint pulses of light that washed the walls in soft gold. I settled onto the floor, tool belt unbuckled to reach the lower conduit. Betsy, my trusty wrench, lay across my lap as I fiddled with the diagnostic scanner. Just me, the faint scent of ozone, and the half-hope she might appear. Falling asleep again? I startled so hard I nearly dropped the wrench. Kayla stood in the doorway, leaning against the frame, eyes glinting with playful reproach. I know. I just got here, I babbled, wiping sweat from my brow. She hummed, stepping inside, the door closing behind her with a soft hiss. Looked like the perfect moment to walk in, again. My pulse tripped over itself. You did that, on purpose? She didn't deny it. Instead, she stepped closer, the gentle scent of her skin curling around me like invisible fingers. You said I could schedule it, she reminded, voice low, so I did. I swallowed, throat suddenly dry. Well, welcome, I croaked. You, caught me, working. I noticed, she teased, gaze dropping pointedly to the tool belt half undone on my hips. I felt my ears go hot. Careful, I managed, voice cracking into something embarrassingly eager, I'm armed with my wrench. Kayla's laugh danced around me, soft and wicked. Your tool seems bigger than most human models, she murmured, crossing her arms under her chest, which only drew my attention lower. It's the industrial kind, I stammered, brain short-circuiting under her gaze. Needs torque. I'm sure it does, she purred, taking one slow, deliberate step closer. The air felt heavier, thick with warm tension. I caught a glimpse of the faint shimmer of scales along her collarbone again, and her head tendrils shifted like living ornaments, betraying her curiosity. You really came back just to see me? I blurted, unable to stop myself. Kayla tilted her head. I came to clean, she said, the corner of her mouth quirking upward. But yes. I was hoping you would be here. My heart slammed so loud I was sure she could hear it. And why is that? I dared to ask, because, she said, taking another step until we were barely inches apart, you're fun to watch. And humans blush so beautifully. I opened my mouth to retort, but words abandoned me when her fingers, tipped with faintly iridescent scales, brushed my wrist, slow and deliberate. Sparks danced up my arm at the touch. You like teasing me, I said, voice barely steady. Yes, Kayla whispered, her breath warm against my jaw. But it isn't only teasing anymore, Freddie. Her hand lingered on my arm, thumb tracing slow circles on skin slick with nervous sweat. My mouth went dry, every coherent thought fled except don't screw this up, and what is it now? I asked, voice softer. Her eyes met mine, steady and calm, but with heat flickering underneath. Now it's curiosity, she murmured. I want to know if your tool is the only impressive part. A laugh, shaky and a little wild, escaped me. Guess you'll have to stick around to find out. Her lips curved. Maybe I will. For a breathless second, I thought she might kiss me right then. But instead, she stepped back, the moment crackling between us like static. But first, she said lightly, finish your repairs. I won't have my client blaming me for another blackout. Right, I managed, blinking to remember why I was here. Fix the panel. Professional. Kayla moved to the side, but didn't go far. She leaned against the wall, arms folded, watching me with that half-amused, half-hungry expression that sent blood rushing to inconvenient places. I dropped my gaze to the circuit board, hands clumsier than usual. Betsy felt heavier in my grip, my palms were slick. You're really going to watch the whole time? I muttered. Of course, she teased, voice warm and velvet. It's educational. I snorted despite myself, fumbling with the thermal coupler. I charge extra for an audience, you know. I'll pay, she replied, and the way she said it, calm, certain, sent another flush prickling across my skin. For the next few minutes, the only sounds were the quiet buzz of the panel, the occasional hum of Kayla's cleaning drone in the background, and the thundering of my own heartbeat. But every time I risked a glance up, her eyes were on me, steady, unblinking, openly appreciative. Like she wasn't just watching a handyman work, but watching me. By the time I sealed the last conduit, sweat was dripping from my brow, and my nerves were shot. But damn if I didn't feel 10 feet tall under her gaze. Done, I said, voice rough. Kayla pushed off the wall, stepping closer. Good, she murmured, fingers brushing the back of my hand again. I like watching you work. Maybe next time. I'll help. I'd like that, I whispered, unable to stop the stupid grin spreading across my face. She smiled, softer, this time. Almost tender. And then, before leaving, she leaned in, close enough that her breath stirred the hair near my ear. Next time, she whispered, I won't just walk in. And with that promise hanging heavy in the air, she turned and left, hips swaying, head tendrils curling lazily, leaving me with a wildly hammering heart. And the undeniable realization that next time, things wouldn't stop at teasing, the next time wasn't work-related. It was late, past the usual shift hours, when my comm buzzed with an incoming message. Kayla's name lit up the screen, and I felt a ridiculous jolt in my chest. Are you awake? I'm in the neighborhood. Thought I'd stop by. I barely had time to type yes before the door buzzer chimed. She stepped into my cluttered little workshop, eyes roving over the stacked tool crates, half-finished gadgets, and a lopsided clock I'd meant to fix 3 months ago. You live here? She asked, voice caught between amusement and curiosity. Kind of, I admitted, rubbing the back of my neck. Cheaper than renting 2 places. And, you know, it smells like home. Kayla took a few slow steps inside, the door sliding shut behind her. Without the uniform jacket, she wore a sleeveless tunic that shimmered between dark teal and deep green, scales at her shoulders catching the low workshop light like living jewels. She looked breathtaking. And judging by the way her tendrils shifted, tasting the air, she knew the effect she had on me. "You said next time you wouldn't just walk in," I blurted, heart pounding. Kayla tilted her head. "I didn't," she murmured. "I asked first this time." "And what do you want?" I asked, voice cracking right at the end. Her eyes softened. "To see you," she said simply. "Not to clean. Not to tease. Just you." The words hit deeper than they should have. My throat felt tight. "You sure?" I whispered. Kayla's answer was to step closer, close enough that I could feel the heat radiating off her skin. Her fingers, warm, scaled, impossibly gentle, brushed my jaw, tilting my face up. "I'm sure," she murmured. Then she kissed me. It wasn't a neat, practiced kiss. It was warm, a little messy, and tasted faintly of the spicy sweet fruit she always seemed to carry. Her tendrils brushed my cheek, feather-light, sending shivers down my spine. I froze for half a heartbeat, then kissed her back, clumsy and eager. My hand found her waist, scales warm under my palm, softer than they looked. She pressed closer, her chest brushing mine, and a soft hum vibrated in her throat. When we finally parted, breathless, her forehead rested against mine. "Was that okay?" she asked, voice low. "Okay?" I managed to say, still catching my breath. "Kayla, that was damn." Her lips curved into a small, self-satisfied smile. "Good." She leaned in again, this time slower, giving me the chance to meet her halfway. The second kiss was softer, deeper, less nerves, more heat. My free hand slid up her back, feeling the shifting texture of scales and the dip of her spine. She sighed into my mouth, a sound so soft it was almost a purr. When we separated, her eyes had gone darker, tendrils curling tighter, betraying excitement. "You really do blush beautifully," she whispered, thumb brushing my cheek. "Can't help it," I admitted, voice hoarse. "You do things to me." "That's the idea," she teased, but softer now, not just to tease, but because she wanted to see me flustered. And because she liked it. For a long moment, we stood there, forehead to forehead, breath mingling. The cluttered workshop felt suddenly intimate, the soft hum of power tools on standby, the faint smell of machine oil and ozone, and her warmth pressed against me. "I thought about this all week," I confessed quietly. "So did I," Kayla murmured back. "Thought maybe it was just flirting," I said. "It started that way," she agreed, her smile turning softer still. "But then I wanted more." I swallowed. "Me too." Her hand slid down to my chest, resting just above my racing heart. "Freddie," she whispered, "may I stay?" It was the most vulnerable question she'd ever asked, voice softer than I'd heard before, teasing stripped away. "Yes," I breathed, without a moment's doubt. "Please." Kayla exhaled, relief flickering through her eyes, and leaned in again, this time pressing her lips to the corner of my mouth, then my jaw, feather-light kisses trailing warmth across my skin. I felt something inside me unclench, something I hadn't realized I'd been holding so tight. For once, I wasn't the sweaty, awkward handyman fumbling with words. I was just Freddie. And she wanted me. And in that messy little workshop, surrounded by spare parts, mismatched tools, and the smell of ozone, an alien maid and a human handyman shared their first real moment that wasn't teasing, or accidental, or half-dared. It was real. And it felt damn good. Kayla stayed. At first, we just sat on the cluttered workbench, close enough for her scales to brush my arm. Every time I looked at her, my chest squeezed tighter, half fear, half wonder, is this real? She tilted her head, smiling softly. "You're overthinking," she murmured. "I'm a professional overthinker," I admitted, and she laughed, the sound low, musical, unguarded. Then she leaned forward, lips brushing mine again. The kiss deepened, hotter, her tendrils wrapping gently around my neck, sending delicious shivers down my spine. "Still thinking?" she teased when we parted. "About how lucky I am," I whispered. Honest words, heavier than they looked. Kayla's eyes softened, and for a heartbeat, the teasing vanished. "And you really don't mind," she asked quietly, "that I'm not human?" I touched the scales on her cheek, feeling the warmth, the life beneath. "Kayla, I mind not kissing you a hell of a lot more." Her smile answered mine, and this time, she kissed me like she meant it. We stumbled back into the mess of toolboxes and cables, knocking over half my spare parts. Her cleaning drone beeped in protest, only to be silenced by a quick flick of her wrist. I laughed breathlessly, she did too, the sound vibrating against my chest. My tool belt clanged to the floor, forgotten. "Guess I really did have my tool out," I muttered, and she giggled into my neck. The heat grew, awkward and sweet. Hands exploring, kisses messy, breath caught in shared laughter. It wasn't perfect, elbows bumped, and at one point, I nearly stepped on a power drill, but damn if it didn't feel perfect to me. In that cluttered workshop, I stopped being just a sweaty handyman. For Kayla, I was Freddy, the human who made her laugh, who saw her, scales and all, and still wanted more. Later, breathless and flushed, we lay side by side on a blanket meant for paint spills, hearts pounding in shaky unison. Kayla's head tendrils curled lazily against my shoulder. Her fingers traced idle patterns on my chest, warm and careful. "You know," she murmured, "when I first walked in, I only thought you were cute." "And now?" I dared to ask. "Now," she said, pressing a soft kiss to my jaw, "I know you're mine." I smiled, stupid and wide, heat blooming under my ribs. "Guess I better keep the tool handy," I teased. "You better," she teased back, but softer, sweeter. Silence settled, not awkward, just comfortable. The workshop felt smaller somehow, but warmer, like it finally belonged to both of us. "I think I like having an alien maid," I whispered. "And I think," she whispered back, "I like having a human handyman." Outside, neon signs flickered against the city haze, but inside, it was just us, a messy, unlikely pair, laughing between kisses, hearts beating in sync. And for the first time in a long time, that felt like enough.